What if everything you ever wanted came true overnight? For Serah, it did. Long, golden hair. Admiration. A new life. But there's a catch, some gifts are curses in disguise. And hers. It whispers. It moves. It hungers for blood, and this is the story of Serah, the bald-head girl. She had always known the sting of stares. Children whispered behind her back, adults offered pity instead of smiles, and mirrors had become her enemies. Bald since birth, her reflection was a daily reminder that she did not, and would never, fit the mold of conventional beauty. Every day she brushed her smooth scalp with longing, tracing where hair should have been, imagining the cascading strands she had never possessed. Her closest friend, Jennifer, often cautioned her, "Serah, beauty is more than what grows on your head." But Serah could not hear wisdom over the pounding desire that echoed in her chest. Beauty, she thought, was the key to acceptance. Beauty was freedom. Beauty was love. Then, one afternoon, as the sun dipped lazily behind the rooftops, a man appeared. Tall, impeccably dressed, with eyes that seemed to know secrets he had no right to know. He introduced himself as Mr. Carrington, a wealthy patron of the art and collector of rare gifts. "I can give you what you've always wanted," he said, voice smooth like honey, yet strangely chilling. "Hair, the most beautiful hair you can imagine." And with it, a life transformed. Serah's heart raced. The world she had only glimpsed in dreams was suddenly within reach. She barely heard Jennifer's urgent plea, "Serah, be careful. Some things are too good to be true." But desire is deaf to warning. Serah agreed, signing a contract that seemed almost too perfunctory to be real. That night, she went to sleep with a mix of fear and anticipation, unaware that the threads of her life were about to weave into a tapestry far darker than her wildest nightmares. By morning, she awoke to a miracle. Hair, long and shimmering, spilled over her shoulders and tumbled down her back like a golden waterfall. It smelled faintly of rain and something else. Something alive. She could not stop smiling. But when she heard a soft sigh, like silk brushing against silk, she froze. It wasn't the wind. It was coming from her own hair. And in that moment, Serah realized that gifts, especially ones that seem too perfect, often carry hidden cost. The first night with her new hair was impossible to sleep through. Serah lay beneath the silken strands that now coated her pillow, but she could not shake the sensation that they were moving. A subtle brush against her arm, a caress along her neck. Every time she thought she was imagining it, a soft sigh echoed in the darkness. "Serah." Her eyes snapped open. The voice was low, almost pleading. Her heart thumped like a drum in her chest. She sat up and shook her head, trying to dispel the fear. "It's just my imagination," she whispered, her voice trembling. But even as she said it, a strand of hair slithered over her hand, curling around her fingers like it had a mind of its own. Over the next few days, Serah noticed more strange things. Her hair refused to stay tied, twisting itself loose even when she braided it. It occasionally tightened around her wrist like tiny, living ropes, and sometimes it hummed, a gentle vibration that seemed almost like a heartbeat. Jennifer was the first to notice the change in her friend. "Serah, something's wrong. You're not yourself. Your hair, it's not normal," she said cautiously, placing a hand on her shoulder. I feel powerful," Serah replied, a nervous edge to her smile. "Look at it. Isn't it amazing?" Jennifer shook her head, worry etched deep into her features. "Amazing isn't always safe. You've always longed for beauty, but remember this, true beauty doesn't bite. True beauty doesn't consume." That night, alone in her room, Serah's hair began to whisper again, this time louder, more insistent. "Feed me, more, give me." The voice sent chills racing down her spine. She tried to pull the strands back into a ponytail, but they resisted, wrapping around her like coils of liquid silk. Panic welled in her chest. It was then that Serah realized the terrible truth. this hair, this miraculous beauty, was alive and it was hungry. And Serah had no idea what it wanted. By the third night, Serah could no longer ignore it. The whispers had grown sharper, almost commanding. Feed me, they hissed in 1,000 subtle tones, sometimes coaxing, sometimes threatening. The hair moved with alarming autonomy, draping itself over her shoulders, coiling around her arms, occasionally tightening as if testing her strength. At dinner with Jennifer, Serah absent-mindedly touched her hair, and a shiver ran through her. She caught Jennifer's worried gaze and tried to laugh it off. "It's just alive, I guess," she said. "Like it has personality." Jennifer's eyes widened. Personality. "Serah, it's not just alive. It's hungry." Serah's laughter died on her lips. "Hungry?" She shook her head. "No, you're exaggerating." But the next morning proved otherwise. She awoke to find strands of her hair dangling over the edge of her bed, snaking toward the floor like searching fingers. When she tried to cut them back, the strands recoiled, almost defensively, leaving tiny scratches across her hands. That night, in the dark, her hair wrapped itself around her like a living blanket. The whispers became words, urgent and insistent. "Blood, life, yours." Fear gripped her heart. Serah realized then that her desire for beauty had blinded her to the danger. This was no ordinary hair. It was alive, aware, and it hungered in a way she could not yet understand. Jennifer begged her to go to someone, an expert, a priest, anyone, but Serah refused. Vanity and fear had locked her in a cage of pride. "I can control it," she insisted, though her voice wavered. And as she lay in bed that night, strands curling around her throat, she began to understand the cruel truth: sometimes, the very thing we long for most can become the thing that destroys us. The next morning, Serah woke to the strangest sensation. Her hair had grown overnight again, longer than before, brushing against the floor, thick and impossibly heavy. It moved almost eagerly, shifting across her shoulders, wrapping around her arms, snaking down the hallway like a living shadow. At first, she tried to laugh it off. "It's just hair," she muttered. But even as she spoke, a strand coiled around her wrist, tightening ever so slightly. Panic surged. By midday, Serah realized she could no longer leave her room without it dragging behind her, brushing walls, tugging at doors, and occasionally wrapping around unsuspecting objects, pulling them down. Her friends and coworkers began noticing the change. Whispers followed her wherever she went. Children stared in fear, adults murmured about curses and vanity. Jennifer arrived, determined. "Serah, you have to let me help you. This isn't normal. You're not controlling it, you're feeding it. I can handle it." Serah snapped, her voice trembling. But even as she said it, a strand lashed out, brushing Jennifer's arm. Jennifer recoiled, fear flashing in her eyes. "See," she whispered. "It's alive. It's hungry. You need to face what you've done." That night, Serah's hair wrapped around her like chains. The whispers grew louder, more demanding. "More, give, life." Terrified, she tried to pull the strands back, cut them, even burn them, but nothing worked. Every act of resistance seemed to feed it, make it stronger, hungrier. Serah understood then, in a chilling moment of clarity, that beauty, when taken without gratitude or caution, could strangle the very soul it was meant to adorn. As she looked in the mirror, the once desired hair framed her face not as a crown of beauty, but as a prison. And somewhere deep inside, she knew, if she didn't find a way to fight it, she would lose herself entirely. It started as a whisper in the hallway, a soft rustling, almost polite. Serah had convinced herself she was imagining it, until she heard Jennifer scream. Serah rushed out of her room to find a shocking sight. A stray cat had wandered near her door, and her hair, longer and wilder than ever, had ensnared it. The strands coiled tightly, pulling the creature toward her room as though it were prey. Serah froze, horrified, realizing that her hair wasn't just hungry, it wanted life itself. Stop. Stop, she cried, but the hare ignored her commands. With an eerie intelligence, it coiled and twisted, tightening around anything it touched. The cat yowled, struggling, until finally, it broke free, shaking but alive, leaving behind a trail of fine, black strands tangled on the floor. Jennifer's face was pale. Serah, this isn't just about you anymore. You can't control it. It's hurting others. The incident spread through the neighborhood by the next day. Whispers of curses, dark magic, and unnatural hair circulated. Friends and acquaintances began avoiding her. Even her reflection seemed to sneer at her from the mirror, framed by the riding mask she once longed for. Alone, Serah tried to cut the hair back, desperate to regain control, but the strands fought her at every snip. Each cut seemed only to anger it, and the whispers turned into a chorus of insatiable hunger. That night, as she lay in bed, she heard the softest, most terrifying whisper yet, "More life, yours." Her chest tightened. She realized then that the hair didn't just want her, it wanted to consume everything around her, starting with the life force of the living. And unless she found a way to end it, she knew there would be more victims. By now, Serah's life was unrecognizable. The once prized beauty of her hair had become a living nightmare. Every movement was measured, every shadow felt like a threat. She could no longer leave the house without the strands slithering along the walls, latching onto anything or anyone that dared to come near. Desperate, she called on experts, hoping for some explanation, some cure. But when she invited a renowned mystic into her home, the hair reacted violently. It leapt from her shoulders, coiling like snakes, cutting off light and breathing in the small room. Papers flew, the mystic screamed, and in a single terrifying moment, Serah realized the truth: no one could help her unless she understood the cause herself. Jennifer stood nearby, fear in her eyes. "Serah, we can't fight this with outsiders. You have to face it yourself. You brought this into your life. You have to fix it yourself." Serah sank to the floor, strands wrapping around her like chains, and for the first time, she saw herself as she truly was, not a beautiful woman with golden hair, but a prisoner of her own vanity. That night, alone in her room, she listened. The whispers were insistent, almost pleading, "Give life, yours." But Serah, trembling yet resolute, finally spoke to them. "I won't let you control me. I won't let you hurt anyone else. You were a gift I misused, and I will not be your servant." The hair flinched. It recoiled slightly, as if shocked by her defiance. But it didn't stop moving. Serah realized that power without wisdom is dangerous, and now wisdom, hard-won and terrifying, was the only weapon she had. For the first time, she understood the cruel lesson hidden within the strands: beauty without self-awareness is a prison, and only by confronting one's desires and their consequences can freedom be reclaimed. Serah woke to a room she barely recognized. Strands of her hair stretched across the walls, the ceiling, even wrapping around furniture as though the house itself had become a living cage. The whispers were deafening now, a chorus of demands: "Yours, give, feed." She swallowed hard and forced herself to stand. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "You are not in charge. I am." The hair flinched, then surged forward, testing her resolve. It brushed her face, tightened around her wrists, and even attempted to coil around her throat. Panic rose, but Serah forced herself to breathe, to focus. She remembered Jennifer's words: "True beauty doesn't bite. True beauty doesn't consume." With deliberate care, she began to speak to it, not as a victim, but as a commander. "This ends tonight. I control my life, not you. I am not yours to feed." For a moment, silence. The strands froze midair, quivering like a beast sensing the strength of its prey. Slowly, as Serah repeated her affirmation, the hair began to loosen, unwinding from walls, furniture, and even her own body. It was not surrender, but respect, an acknowledgement that she would no longer be ruled by desire alone. Hours passed. Serah stayed vigilant, watching every movement, every whisper. She realized something profound: the hair mirrored her inner self. When she feared, it fed on that fear. When she resisted, it tested her courage. Her journey was not about taming the hair, it was about taming herself. By dawn, Serah was exhausted but victorious. The hair lay gently around her shoulders, beautiful still, but obedient. She finally understood the cruel duality of her wish: beauty could uplift, but unchecked desire could enslave. The sun rose over the quiet town, casting warm light into Serah's room. The hair that had once been a prison now lay tamed, shimmering but still unmistakably alive. For the first time in weeks, she could breathe without fear, move without constraint, and look in the mirror without terror. But victory came with a price. Serah knew she could not ignore the damage her desire had caused: the cat, the terrified neighbors, even the failed mystic who had come to help. She spent the morning carefully untangling every strand that had strayed, ensuring that nothing could harm anyone else. Jennifer watched, relief softening her features. "You did it," she said quietly. "You fought it, and you survived." Serah shook her head. "I didn't just fight the hair. I fought myself, my greed, my vanity, my blind longing. That's what almost destroyed me." Together, they walked through the neighborhood, returning borrowed items the hair had snatched, explaining the strange events, and offering apologies. Serah realized that true beauty was not in admiration, but in responsibility and integrity. She could finally live without fear, but she would carry the lessons of her ordeal forever. Even in her reflection, the hair shimmered like sunlight, gentle and obedient. It was a reminder, not of what she had lost, but of what she had learned: that desire, when guided by wisdom, could be a source of strength rather than destruction. Weeks later, Serah received an unexpected invitation. It was written in elegant, precise handwriting. "Come see me. There is more you must understand." Signed, Mr. Carrington. Her heart pounded, but she went. She had faced the hair, she had faced herself. What harm could one man do? Carrington's mansion loomed before her, opulent and cold. Inside, he smiled with unsettling calm. "Serah," he said, voice like velvet, "you've done remarkably well. Few survive what I offer." Serah's hands tightened around the edges of her coat. "Why me? Why give me that thing?" Carrington's smile widened, almost cruel. "I offer gifts to those who desire them most. Beauty, power, desire, but they are never free. They demand a price. You could have ignored me, taken nothing. But you wanted what you could not earn, and so the gift chose you. And now, you've learned the hardest lesson, that wanting without understanding comes with consequences." Serah's hair shimmered, moving subtly as if agreeing with her. She realized that the trials she had endured were not punishment, they were education. Carrington wasn't evil, he was a mirror, revealing the dangers of unchecked desire. "You survived because you learned," Carrington continued, voice softer now. "You learned to face fear, to take responsibility, to control yourself. Few can claim that victory." Serah exhaled, understanding at last. The hair's hunger had been a reflection of her own longing, her own vanity, her own fear. By mastering it, she had mastered herself. She thanked him quietly, leaving the mansion with a calm heart and a clear mind. Serah returned home, the morning sun spilling golden light across her room. Her hair, long and beautiful, now rested gently on her shoulders, no longer restless, no longer hungry. It moved with her, but only when she wore it, a living reminder of the lessons she had endured. Jennifer greeted her at the door, eyes wide with relief. "You did it, Serah. You're free." Serah smiled, a calm, unshakable smile. "I'm free, yes, but I understand now that freedom isn't just about surviving. It's about learning, about seeing desire clearly, and acting with wisdom." She walked through her neighborhood, now familiar and welcoming, helping neighbors and friends who had been touched by the strange events. Her hair shimmered in the sunlight, admired not for vanity, but as a symbol of her resilience and growth. Looking into the mirror, she no longer saw the bored girl longing for beauty. She saw herself, a woman tempered by fear, strengthened by courage, and enlightened by experience. The hair had been a gift, yes, but more than that, it had been a teacher. And she had passed the hardest lesson of all, that beauty, desire, and power are only truly valuable when balanced by wisdom, humility, and responsibility. As the wind ruffled the strands, she whispered to herself, and perhaps to the hair, we are beautiful not because of what we have, but because of who we become. And in that quiet morning, Serah finally understood, some gifts are tests, some desires are mirrors, and the greatest beauty is the courage to face ourselves. If this story made you think, if it kept you hooked to the end, then do me a favor, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Drop a like to support the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. And remember, sometimes, the things we want most are the things that can destroy us. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and stay with me for more stories like this one.